The statement wasn't spontaneous. It exploded amidst a yard filled with budget lawn chairs, charred burgers, and people feigning affection for tradition's sake. I was clutching a platter of ribs when Connor spoke. Before I could place the food down, he hurled that remark. At 18, lounging casually in his plastic chair like a discount James Dean, with his sunglasses still on despite the sunset, everyone grew silent. Forks halted mid-air. Soda cans whispered softly in hesitant hands. I avoided looking at him initially. Instead, I examined the ribs, took in their aroma, reminisced about the morning I slow-cooked them, recalling his first Little League game where he struck out thrice and cried in the car. I told him, "You bear the Holbrook lineage. We don't give up." That's where he found himself, laughing as if discarding a forgotten phrase. "I'm adopting my mother's new surname Bennett. It sounds crisp." "Robust," he appended. The hardest part wasn't the statement. It was his careless delivery, as if erasing a stain on his shoe. And when I eventually raised my gaze, there was my ex-wife, Melissa, already averting her eyes. Jack Bennett, her new spouse, the man Connor seemed to admire now, emitted a self-satisfied chuckle, the kind that incites an instinctive fist clench. I didn't strike him. I didn't even tighten my grip. That would have implied he mattered. Instead, I nodded. Okay, that was it. Just one word. But within me, something quieted. Something old and still and cold. Not anger. Anger flares up swiftly and fiercely. This was more gradual, like ice forming on a window you thought was secure. "I'll get more ice," I said, and I went inside. Dear friends, if you enjoy this story, please like and subscribe to our channel. It will motivate us to make more videos like this for you. The chatter resumed behind me. Tension filled the air like a crowd after an abrupt gunshot. I heard Melissa murmur something under her breath about my being too sensitive. Jack responded, "Let him make his own choices." The music grew louder. The scent of charred food hung heavy. I paid it no mind. I approached the freezer, scrutinizing the partially melted bag of ice, and rested my hands on the countertop. This countertop held memories of countless glue projects, packed lunches, botched late-night science fair experiments. When Connor was 9, he etched his initials into its corner with a compass. I filled it with wood putty and smoothed it over, telling him, "Holbrooks always leave things better than they found them." But apparently not this time. Upstairs, the guest room remained untouched, bedspread immaculate, shelves free of dust. I settled on the edge of the bed and opened the drawer of the vintage oak nightstand. A well-worn black notebook lay within, untouched for years, a repository of military contacts, echoes from my active service days, phone numbers belonging to individuals who left tasks undone. I leisurely perused its pages as laughter seeped in from the outside. Jack's boisterous, hollow laugh, Connor's high-pitched, anxious chuckle, tinged with guilt he could not confess, Melissa's feigned, rehearsed giggle, identical to when she would say, "I'm just tired, Daniel." Before her late-night visits to her sister, I landed on the page. Colonel Braxton, liaison from West Point. We hadn't communicated in over a decade, yet he continued sending me an annual holiday card. I had once rescued his son from a collapsed building during an exercise gone awry in Kandahar. Such debts cling tightly in military families. I hadn't dialed the number yet. I merely gazed at it, committing it to memory once more. Meanwhile, outside, Connor paraded around with his chest puffed like a rooster adorned in a second-hand polo. I was given a beer by Jack, but Melissa feigned ignorance. I departed back outside with some ice. "Are you all right, Dad?" someone inquired. "Yes, fine," I responded, placing ice cubes into the cooler. Yet I wasn't. For years, I had instructed that boy on how to maintain a straight posture, meet another's gaze, and employ hands when words fell short. Now he wished to sever the name that guided him through each injury and heartbreak. Very well. He believed it was merely a name. He knew nothing of what else lay open or shut. That evening, following the barbecue's cessation and discarding of the lukewarm beers into the recycling bin, I sat alone in the silent stillness of my study under the continuous hum of the ceiling fan and the occasional soft click of my aged desk lamp. The house echoed with an unnerving silence. Neither had I switched on the TV nor removed my shoes. I saw no need to alter my polo, still bearing a faint scent of hickory smoke and deception. On my well-traveled, worn leather notebook, residing on the desk, were names either those I had buried or owed favors to. Colonel Braxton was among the latter. We weren't companions in a casual sense. We shared an unspoken bond forged by blood, sweat, and silence. In 2005, I saved his son's life. He pledged to repay me someday. I told him it wasn't necessary, but the debt remained unpaid. I opened the book to his entry. The number remained the same. My fingers hovered over the phone. It wasn't indecision that made me pause. I understood the irreversible impact of what was about to transpire. This wasn't a matter of taking away privileges or canceling subscriptions. This was severing the last hope he had nurtured since he was 10 West Point. For 4 years, he was in Rock, spent 2 summers at leadership academies, invested 100 hours into essays, interviews, and preparation. I wrote the first recommendation letter myself, made requests, crafted support around his ambition with caution and satisfaction. I told him, "We bear this name with dignity," and he used that same mouth to call it insignificant. I dialed his number. Braxton. His voice was unaltered, abrasive as gravel. "It's Holbrook." There was a pause. "Then I assumed you would contact me. You have a candidate named Connor Holbrook in the upcoming admissions cycle. Candidate ID ending in 88. There was a sharp silence on the line, predictable. Unshocked. Yours. Was. Braxton let out a sigh through his nose. I could visualize him. In his den, cigar tray within reach, glass of bourbon sweating on a coaster. Still donned the ring. Still said, "Sir," even when it wasn't necessary. "Do you want me to sabotage it?" I relaxed in my chair. He is free to reapply. But he no longer has my backing. I'd prefer if you informed the relevant individuals without fuss. Simply detach the backup line. No explanation required. Clear, done. No melodrama. No condemnation. Merely a precise, sterile elimination. Like surgically excising a cancer before it spreads. I set the phone aside and scanned the room. Photos adorning the walls, my father shaking my hand at my commissioning ceremony, Connor in his Boy Scout uniform, Melissa subtly distant in a Thanksgiving snapshot. The warning signals were always present. I just chose not to heed them. On my desk lay a miniature brass compass that Connor made for me during his 12th year at camp. The lid's engraving read, "To aid you in finding your way home." I gazed at it for some time before closing it softly, as if closing a coffin. The next morning, an email arrived. Subject: Candidate support withdrawn. Body: Application no longer supported. Status of admission under review. Candidate to be informed. No pomp. No aftermath. Polite yet bureaucratic execution. I discarded the email, subsequently initiated another browser tab for updating assorted documents like wills, trusts, and beneficiary records. While Connor dozed off in his mother's house, a place once funded by me, he fantasized about parades he wouldn't participate in. Unaware, he remained blissfully uninformed. This ignorance, however, wouldn't last long. Upon awakening, he would find himself facing a future indistinguishable from the one he desired, but without my presence. Teenage boys who have grown up on validation and screens often possess an overbearing arrogance. Connor was no exception, inheriting his mother's pride and my tactlessness translating to a lack of humility and restraint. That very night, as I phoned to sabotage his West Point ambitions, he lounged in Melissa's den, resting feet on the table I constructed, exchanging jokes with boys who had never held jobs beyond summer stints. I needed no clairvoyance to decipher his messages. I tracked them. Some time ago, I installed device synchronization on Connor's phone. 13-year-old son, I cautioned him. I mentioned it for emergencies, location tracking, backup, and safety measures. He didn't think to remove it, nor did I bring it up again. The instant I spotted my name in a chat named Debois, I brewed fresh black coffee, sat down, and scrutinized every pixel as if it were a confession. Connor suggested his father should shove it today, skull, 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 which was followed by laughter and approval from Ryan, Elmau at last. That guy's so uptight. Connor looked close to tears but happy. Tyler, Bruce Skull, Connor appeared relieved. FR indeed, I'm done with his loser name. Now I'm a Bennett. No more fuss about a broken back. Laughing emojis were exchanged. Melissa was in the next thread. She had received the same screenshot there and replied with a laughing emoji, followed by, I told you he'd just sulk. That man can't handle real men. Jack then joined in, stating, You should have done it years ago, kid. You're a Bennett now. Act like it. No punctuation. No shame. I fixed my gaze on the screen, not with wrath, but something more profound, something chill and deep as oil beneath tranquil waters. I saved the conversation, exported the entire thread, time-stamped. I chose silence, refraining from intervention. They reveled, like hyenas dancing over a grave they believed was filled. Little did they know, the grave remained empty, and the man they thought they'd buried was still sitting in the shadows. Connor sent an image of my old army plaque, now stored away in the garage, accompanied by the word history. One of his friends commented, You are a savage, earning 100 points. I magnified that picture, noticing the dust on the wood and a cobweb near the corner sites I hadn't seen since our move. It seemed Melissa had finally decided which of my memories were superfluous. I captured this moment too, saving it for later. This wasn't about vengeance in their sense, nor a fit of rage. This involved gathering information, documenting proof, and constructing a file that would ultimately collapse upon itself like a crumbling bridge. The noise wouldn't be heard until the fall. They misconstrued my silence as surrender. They believed I left the barbecue that day because I lacked a retort. Unbeknownst to them, I was already crafting the finale of their triumphant march piece by text, chuckle by chuckle, all logged and time-stamped. Connor believed he was making a daring proclamation, but what he inadvertently sent me was a signed confession. The living trust marked the beginning. It was a tranquil Thursday morning, with most people sipping coffee and scanning news headlines. However, my hands were busy on a keyboard. My mind was sharper than it had been in years, devoid of distractions and noise. I was executing a calculated redistribution of legacy, not seeking vengeance but precision. My attorney, Janice, answered on the second ring. Daniel, all good. Need some info, I queried, maintaining a composed tone. The voice of one who suppressed emotion and now concentrated on administrative tasks. First, I forwarded the updated beneficiary arrangements. Connor Holbrook was removed from the trust, life insurance, and pension rollover. The new primary trust beneficiary is Designated Beneficiaries Veterans Children Education Fund 60%, Operation Valor Grant Program 25%, St. Paul's Orphan Support Network 15%. The legal jargon was meticulously crafted by Janice to prevent any future disputes, emotional manipulation, or loopholes. I aimed to ensure Connor could not contest the decisions. Subsequently, I addressed the $529 college fund, established the year he turned 6, depositing $1.50 monthly. It was intended for his future, but now it serves a different purpose. I had no idea of its contents, yet indifferent. Assumed it was secure because I always handled it. Transferred the entire sum to a scholarship foundation for Gold Star families, contacting them personally. Declined their request to name a grant after me. Preferred anonymity. The only one who would notice its disappearance was the one who believed he had a claim on it. In less than 5 minutes, I removed Connor as my dependent from the insurance portal, health, dental, and even the optional accident coverage. A soft pop-up appeared, asking if I was sure about removing my child as a dependent. I confirmed without hesitation. It wasn't an act of war, it was a statement of non-existence. I left no room for ambiguity. I revised the medical power of attorney, emergency contact lists, all digital property entries, and even updated my funeral instructions. To top it off, I modified my will as well. The mortuary employee glanced at me through his glasses upon my instruction. Don't notify kin unless explicitly stated, only use the written list. He said he was estranged, and I replied that he was erased. My final duty was symbolic. I retrieved a wooden cigar box from my fireproof safe, containing mementos, Connor's baby bracelet, his first honor roll pin, a photo of him in uniform at the West Point preparatory camp. I carried this box to the fireplace and ignited a match. I burnt only the pin and the bracelet, leaving the photo untouched. The fragments of a boy who no longer existed were now ashes. I kept the photograph, placing it in a manila envelope along with Connor's texts, screenshots, and an empty West Point letter. I labeled the envelope with his name and sealed it, not for sentimentality, but to document. Legacy encompasses more than inheritance. It involves intention, and I had just reshaped mine, decisively, quietly, without a single raised voice. 8 days post the barbecue, a fissure emerged, not part of my design, but his misconception. Connor had been basking in the glory of his stunt, strutting like a prized stallion after posting Jim Selfie's caption, "Bennett Bloodline Flexed Biceps." Wearing a counterfeit cadet hoodie from a military surplus store, he likely believed it added an air of authenticity. Melissa was his usual adoring self. At last, her golden boy had stepped out of the overshadowing presence of his father, Jack Bennett. Even receiving a hand-me-down Omega watch and being labeled a symbol of manhood by Jack didn't seem to faze him. However, the universe, in its impeccable timing, delivered the first crack through Connor's flawless image at 2:41 p.m. on a Thursday. Content, Admission Office Update. From United States Military Academy Admissions Office, this is to verify receipt of your recent withdrawal of support from your designated recommender. Subsequently, your application status has been altered to withdrawn. No need for additional steps. Should you decide to reapply, a fresh assessment process will be initiated. USMA Admissions Department has spoken. In a blink of an eye, a decade of hopes shattered into 4 brief messages and a system alert. Melissa received the news while at work. She got 3 texts from Connor. "Connor, what's with this West Point email? Did you or Jack mention something to them? Call me immediately." No reply. He then attempted to call her, but only reached voicemail. "Hey, it's Daniel. Please leave a message." However, he didn't. Naturally, Connor wouldn't leave messages. He expects immediate callbacks. But I was no longer a sounding board for his self-importance. Instead, he messaged me, "Connor, Dad, I received a strange email from West Point. Connor." He claimed that I withdrew my application. I never did. One after another, the notifications poured in, but I didn't open any of them. I left them untouched, unanswered. Melissa followed suit next, her voice laden with accusation rather than panic. "Melissa," she said, "what's going on with West Point? Connor got something about withdrawal. Was that you?" Her sentence should have ended at "what?" The rest sounded desperate. I didn't respond to her either. Instead, I disabled message previews and started a new journal entry, dated it, recorded the email time, saved it as a PDF, encrypted it, stored it on an external drive. That's what men like me do. We document, not scream. In the meantime, Connor was falling apart. He logged into his application portal, finding his status withdrawn with no appeal or further options. Every contact form led him to a generic admissions inbox. The recommender section, previously displaying my name, now showed support withdrawn. Application pending new nomination. He tried calling West Point directly but received no response, leaving a voicemail and sending 3 emails without any reply. He attempted to contact Colonel Braxton via LinkedIn, but was blocked. This sent him spiraling. The group chat, Dubois, fell silent after he shared an email screenshot. Connor speculated that his father had ruined his application. He was puzzled about how this could have happened. Tyler waited for a response. Ryan replied with simple disappointment, no emojis or skulls. Instead, there was only silence. That evening, Melissa left another message on his voicemail. If he was involved, he needed to call immediately. This was his future at stake, and he couldn't destroy his own son like this. He argued that sabotage is what occurs when someone ruins something they never constructed. What he did was more about reclaiming what he had built, as the boy who disrespected the foundation didn't deserve to stand upon it. Connor lost one of his names from a door, so he began by removing it and then locking himself out. He arrived at the driveway too quickly. The tires on his mother's leased SUV raised a cloud of dust that lingered in the warm morning air like an echo of urgency. Initially, Connor didn't shut off the engine. Instead, he gazed at the house, hoping for normalcy. The blue shutters, the chipped mailbox, and the garden gnome that Melissa disliked, but he refused to move, were all present. Yet, none of it seemed right. A for sale sign stood like a tombstone, with "under contract" scrawled across the top. Freshly trimmed grass surrounded it, but Connor was oblivious. He exited the car, leaving the door open and the keys inside, then hurried up the porch steps as if chasing a fleeing dream. He knocked, waited, and knocked harder, but there was no answer. The curtains were missing, no lights were on, no sounds were heard, just the faint creak of the porch swing swaying in the wind. He reached for the doorknob, tried it, found it locked. He pressed his face against the window, peering inside like a child trying to catch a glimpse of a forbidden room, only to see emptiness, bare walls, and polished floors. An empty residence stripped of history. Photos and frames absent. The army display case vanished too. Even my favorite worn-out recliner was missing. Nothing remained that belonged to me there, not even a lingering scent. Then Mrs. Gentry emerged from her house across the street, carrying a watering can and cigarette, as if she had witnessed this scene before. "Are you searching for Mr. Holbrook?" Connor turned, desperate. "Yes," he replied. "Is he here?" She examined him without enthusiasm. "He's moved out, I believe, about 2 weeks ago. He mentioned he was going to the coast." "The coast?" She nodded without saying much, just that he had grown tired of this place. Sold it quickly, a cash buyer. A silent man, but resourceful. Did he leave a contact number? She blew smoke in his direction. No, she didn't have one. He paused, on the verge of asking more questions, but she was already returning to her begonias. Once again, Connor faced the door, knocked more slowly this time, as if hoping the house would change its mind. It didn't respond. Instead, it just returned a vacant gaze with empty windows. Impassive and uncaring, he slumped on the porch step, recalling the nights we spent here handing out Halloween candy or him learning to tie a tie before his freshman dance. Here, he confided in me at 13 that he was bound for West Point like I had been. Now he appeared as an intruder. He fished out his phone again, attempting another call, but only reached voicemail once more. A barrage of unread messages from him filled the text thread. "Dad, please call me. This is serious, we need to talk. West Point saying things that don't add up. Are you ignoring me? Why did you move?" He scrolled through, then halted on a previous message. The one he sent right after the barbecue. "I'm done with the Holbrook name." He fixated on it. The screen darkened and locked. The porch groaned under him. For the first time in days, Connor felt something unfamiliar settle within him. Not fury, not false bravado, but the subtle, silent sorrow of vacancy. The house didn't deceive him. I had just taken my inheritance and departed, leaving it beyond reach for anyone else to grab. The gathering was everything Melissa desired and nothing Connor required. A white tent in the garden, a rented photo booth with prompts that bellowed "class clown," followed by a scholarship. Tables filled with catered wings and sliders, custom cupcakes with frosting announcing "Bennett Bound" in elegant cursive. Jack distributed cigars as if he were some sort of forefather. It was a spectacle, a boisterous, expensive denial of the truth. For amidst the balloons and banners, one undeniable fact persisted: Connor hadn't received word from West Point. Not since the mysterious confirmation of withdrawal email 2 weeks back. Each subsequent message had been ignored. Every call to their admissions line was met with soft-spoken apologies and guidance towards general policy links. Yet he smiled, snapped photos, laughed excessively. With the same circle of friends who previously rejoiced over my rejection as if it were a spiritual breakthrough, I found myself once more in their presence. That's when the envelope arrived, no return address, no postage mark, merely slipped amidst the stack of cards on the gift table between one from Uncle Jared and a novelty check labeled "For your dorm pizza fund." Connor didn't immediately spot it. It was Melissa who passed it to him idly, taking a sip of champagne. The envelope bore no name, likely another friend being theatrical. He tore it open in full view, surrounded by the crowd. Inside was a photograph familiar, printed on heavy paper, and his West Point acceptance letter was within. The original one, which he had shared publicly on Instagram months prior, garnering 1,400 likes and 3 DMs from girls beyond his reach. Now, it bore a red diagonal stamp across it, void. The room seemed to tilt, laughter faded, conversation halted. The feeling when someone senses something is burning and isn't certain whether to flee or act indifferent. The second thing fell loose. A 3-page printout, a timeline, June 4th. I told my father to push it away today, skull, 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 June 4th. Screenshot of the BBQ group chat with a demeaning comment. June 5th. Now I'm a Bennett, Holbrook who. June 6th. Picture of Daniel's military plaque, now in a box, with the caption history. Not mine. June 8th. I'd laugh if he cried. He needed to hear it. Face with ears of joy. All time-stamped. All screenshotted. The third and last item. A single page, handwritten in blue ink. Neatly arranged. Like a final entry in a soldier's journal. Connor, you said you didn't want my name. That it was pathetic. That you were done with everything I symbolized. I understood, and I respected your decision. So, I gave you what you asked for. A life without me in it. No endorsements. No financial support. No security. No name. You deserved West Point. You ruined your reputation with the person who orchestrated your arrival. The man whose name held the key to the door you just locked. Farewell on your new journey. This is the essence of a name. Deech. Connor stood motionless for a brief moment, then crumpled the letter in haste, but it was too late. Half the room had already witnessed it. Melissa's mouth gaped open, stuck mid-sip. Jack leaned closer, snatched the paper from Connor's hand, read a few lines, and returned it without uttering a word. Connor's friends all of a sudden found their phones incredibly engaging. One, Ryan, leaned towards another and whispered, "Is this for real?" Some people began to quietly gather their gift bags. Melissa hissed, "Is this a prank?" But her voice trembled. Connor remained silent. His face had paled, the fake tan from the photo booth lights making it more noticeable. Then his uncle, my father's brother, stepped forward, read the letter over Connor's shoulder, and shook his head. "We warned you, lad. You were told not to disrespect your father's memory." He spoke calmly, without raising his voice or causing a scene. Instead, he turned and walked away from the party, his strides measured and unhurried. Two of my cousins followed suit, soon joined by 3 more relatives. A family division was taking shape before our eyes. Melissa remained frozen in the yard, flanked by empty champagne glasses and wilting decorations. Connor chose a folding chair and sat down alone. An envelope lay on his lap, once filled with promise from a legacy now reduced to nothing but paper, silence, and a name he couldn't undo. Connor initially didn't perceive the change that was occurring. His gaze remained fixed on the envelope as if waiting for it to transform into something else. His fingers traced the crease of the handwritten letter, which he had earlier crumpled and then unfolded, unsure whether to discard it or preserve it like a cursed relic. However, the gathering around him began to dwindle. First, his grandfather left quietly, without fanfare. A simple look and a whispered shame marked his departure. In a leisurely pace, Connor, supported by a cane, ambled towards his vehicle, trailed by his father's relatives, people who had cradled him as an infant, sent birthday greetings, and even slipped him cash at Christmas. None of them looked back, and yet he remained seated. The cupcakes were wilting, the photo booth attendant was glancing at his watch, and the DJ, tasked with playing top 40 hits for Connor's significant moment, reduced the music to a soft hum, the symbolic lull that signaled the party's demise. Melissa picked up on this first. She was striding the patio now, barefoot, her drink sloshing, face flushed with anger she couldn't pinpoint. She barked orders at the caterers, demanded the DJ to increase the volume, attempted to reignite the celebration, as if food and drinks could overcome the reverberation of a heritage rejecting its presence. Then she turned on Connor. "Was that your doing, Connor? Didn't you know he was going to do this?" Her voice pierced the backyard like a whip, accusatory and sharp. "You must have known. This is all your fault." Connor swiftly raised his head. It was my mistake. Don't you think this incident wasn't unexpected? She moved beside him, baring her teeth behind a practiced smile. Have you any idea how this appears? What your grandfather just stated. Connor rose from his seat abruptly, causing it to topple over. He made me appear as the antagonist. Melissa's eyes glowed. You portrayed yourself as the antagonist. Are you aware of the number of people who saw those messages? Those posts? You didn't fabricate them, Connor. You publicly displayed your folly and anticipated approval. The remnants of the audience heard every word. Jack, the presumed hero, the stepparent of the year, stood near the cooler with a beer and a partially lit cigar. He didn't intervene, didn't defend, just watched, like a man realizing the currents were changing and his ship wasn't as sturdy as he believed. Connor slowly rotated, examining the faces. Not one was friendly. A cousin murmured to her mother, who shook her head with tight lips. Someone whispered, "He brought this upon himself." Another responded, Danny had always given him everything. A remark that hit hardest followed. He cautioned them. He cautioned them. Connor bellowed then, "Is this justifiable in your eyes? Do I truly deserve this?" His actions destroyed my future. He stole my West Point opportunity. He abandoned me. No reply came, just the faint sound of cutlery and the echo of distance measured by footsteps. Melissa turned to Jack now. "Speak up." Jack inhaled, but his words were not comfort. Only it was a mistake letting him publish that rubbish. Should have made him remove it. With this, the last straw broke. Connor's eyes widened. "It was you who said I should stand on my own. You claimed Dad was weak. Jack didn't even glance at him. And it was your belief. That's on you." Connor then felt it. Not just humiliation and fury, but the crushing realization that nobody, absolutely nobody, stood by his side. The name he discarded wasn't just Daniel's, it also belonged to you. The possession was of those departing the gathering, the ones cognizant of the significance behind his name. Now they perceived him as the youth who disrespected his father and received a mirror in response. Staggering back to the table, Connor held onto its edge, hinting at his instability. His gaze fell on the photo of the forsaken West Point letter, which seemed like a tombstone. The attendees around him were now apparitions. He stood amidst his own festivities, yet only the absent man was being honored. The incident transpired inadvertently, or perhaps not. It had been 3 weeks since the upheaval at the party, since the letter, since the room cleared out, leaving behind a boy clinging to the remnants of a name he believed he could discard. Ever since, Connor has been attempting to locate me. Calling from temporary phones, messaging from fictitious accounts, even driving to addresses obtained from background checks. He pursued my old veterinary clinic in Shreveport, as well as the post office where I collected my paychecks. However, all efforts proved fruitless. On a mellow Tuesday afternoon, I exited a tranquil library nestled on the outskirts of a coastal town, a structure typically overlooked until the need for free Wi-Fi or tax forms arises. Having recently returned The Art of War, an irony that would strike me later as I heard the screeching brakes behind me, I spotted him. Unaltered in appearance yet emaciated by despair. Messy hair, swollen eyes, and hollowed cheeks hinting at a prolonged absence of sleep. He hastened towards the parking lot, slamming the car door shut behind him. He was my father. Upon recognizing me, he halted not due to the label, but because it had been weeks since he addressed me without irony, sarcasm, or self-deprecation. Catching up, he pleaded breathlessly, "Dad, wait." I turned to face him. A boy appeared before me, far removed from the boastful adolescent at barbecues and the smirking participant in group chats. Instead, he was a boy who had glimpsed the abyss and understood the bridge was lost. He claimed his earlier words were not meant honestly, referring to the derogatory comments about my name and text messages. The gathering. I was merely enraged. I hadn't anticipated such an escalation. Initially, I remained quiet. I only observed him. Noticed how his hands quivered subtly by his sides, how his eyes darted away as if the truth might overwhelm him if he maintained eye contact for too long. He persisted in talking. I was unaware that West Point would reject me. "I've made every effort, Father. I sent messages, placed calls. They refused to acknowledge me without a fresh endorsement and I need you. Only a letter. Only a call. Please. Yet I remained silent. Not just yet. Instead, I allowed the silence to deepen. Tense and precise. He awkwardly filled it. I was mistaken, all right? I believed Jack was our future. That you were merely clinging to the past. But now I understand. I do. You didn't merely bear the name, you constructed it. I thought I could effortlessly discard that legacy and I hadn't realized the price. It was then that I sighed, not because I was weary, because I had been in this position before, with him, with Melissa, with the gradual twist of gratitude evolving into entitlement. This time, it was the concluding moment. You sincerely meant each utterance. I whispered gently. Words carry significance. He disagreed. Not me. You. It's all right. You make your own decisions. But remember, don't return to the charred bridge you set alight, expecting me to reconstruct it. He seemed taken aback. All I ask is for assistance in mending West Point. I'll handle the rest. Just help me regain entry. His eyes were filled with understanding as he finally acknowledged that the man standing before him was no longer a sanctuary, no longer an alternative, no longer reachable. I turned, walked past the pines towards the rental car. Sunlight sliced through the foliage in sharp golden beams. He made no move to follow, no pleas for mercy or entreaties. Instead, he stood there, enveloped by the reverberations of choices he once viewed as jokes, and watched his final lifeline depart. Not with wrath, not with ill will, simply with a sense of conclusion and quietude. The gathering took place at a leased cabin with a scenic lake view, a familiar spot where we would all convene during every alternate summer, including the ones when Connor was still enamored by his grandfather's war tales, finding them more thrilling than Marvel films. This time, however, Connor arrived solo without Melissa or Jack. His ride was an aged sedan that wasn't his, as his SUV had been reclaimed following Melissa's cessation of fuel payments and Jack's refusal to respond to his calls. Dressed in a button-up shirt with rolled-up sleeves, he attempted a forced smile at the registration desk, but they could all sense the underlying tension. His name, known far and wide, couldn't help but resonate. Inside the room, cousins buzzed around with toddlers, aunts prepared pies, and Uncle Paul stood silently near the fireplace beside the display honoring family service members. My photo was among them, in uniform, positioned next to my father's. Beneath it lay a commemorative plaque. In tribute to those bearing the Holbrook lineage with dignity, Connor stiffened upon sighting it. His name was absent from the memorial. A brief distance away, the mix struck the microphone. Before we proceed with lunch, there is a unique announcement to make. This year's gathering was facilitated by a charitable contribution from Daniel Holbrook, regrettably unavailable today, but wishing warm greetings to the ongoing legacy encompassed within us. The room echoed with courteous clapping. Connor refrained from joining. His jaw hardened. Eyes searched through the tables until he identified the one near the front. Table number 1. Yearly reserved for senior members and direct lineage bearers. It accommodated 8 seats. 7 were occupied. 1 was vacant. Everyone recognized whose it should have been. His. By its side lay a folded placard. He drew closer, heart pounding. He picked it up. Read it. It didn't bear his name. It wasn't empty. Instead, it read, reserved for the lasting name. Connor let go of his side. The invitation card swayed towards the table, mimicking a surrendering white flag. Alone amidst his former family, he stood there, facing the room filled with people who once were his kin. Now they merely nodded, feigned smiles graced their faces, and resumed their discussions. Once more, the whispers resurfaced like long-forgotten specters. Have you read the donation notice? Incredible how sharp Daniel still is. Ah, Connor. Seems he torched that bridge, didn't he? Names carry weight. Always have. A relative's child passed him a Holbrook family t-shirt. The back bore the names of all family members who contributed to the event. Connor scanned the list. Daniel was on it. His name wasn't neither as a donor nor as a Holbrook. Stepping outside, the gentle spring wind struck him like an undeniable truth. He found solace on the bench by the lake, the same one he and I had once used for fishing, the same spot where I had once said that legacy is something you earn, not something you inherit. Now he had inherited nothing, no name, no place at the table, no seat to occupy, no echo to follow. Merely the echo of children laughing behind him, stories being spun, lives persisting around a name that had released him. Daniel Holbrook wasn't physically present within the structure. Yet his presence permeated it. His charity financed its construction. His quietude sanctified it. And in that instant, with no possessions to claim and no title to bear, Connor comprehended. He hadn't merely lost a father, he had eliminated his position in the bloodline that once cradled him. The legacy didn't conclude. Instead, it transitioned. It progressed without him.